NFL Insider gives a wild Rams prediction on what this game means for the entire NFL landscape and some key matchups that will determine the outcome of this Rams-Seahawks ever important game this coming Sunday. All that and more on this episode of Rams Digest. And welcome back to another episode of Rams Digest. I'm your host, Joshua Finehirsh. And before we head into today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 5K, 5,000 subscribers. So if you want to be a part of that journey, make sure to hit that sub button. Click that notification bell, click all so you get notified and never miss whenever we post our daily new Rams Digest video content pieces covering all things Rams so you do not miss a beat this NFL regular season. And make sure to leave a like on this video right now as well for Week 9 being underway. The Patriots taking care of the Jets last night, 27-14. And the ever-important Rams-Seahawks game coming up this Sunday, 1:05 p.m. kickoff here in LA. But we are going to try to be live at around 12:55 p.m. Pacific time this Sunday, November 16th, for this key divisional matchup. So like this video right now as well if you're looking forward to Josh and I being back on the stream together. But we have to get into today's main story from Ramblin' Fan, which is Adam Schefter, one of the best NFL insiders out there, gives a wild take about this Rams-Seahawks game as a whole, which we will be getting into right now. The NFL has an East Coast bias. Every season, accolades and honors skew to players who compete along the Eastern Seaboard, but you could toss all of that when the 7-2 Rams host the 7-2 Seahawks. It's a game that has significant implications not just for the NFC Western Division, but for the NFL at large. NFL insider analyst Adam Schefter knows it full well in a recent social media blurb. He circles the West Coast showdown as the game to watch, and he's not wrong. All NFC teams have a vested interest in this one, and NFL fans at large love to see a closely competitive game. That's exactly what is in store for fans in this one. Yeah, it is. And I do think that they're definitely correct on this in Ramblin' Fan, that there is a bit of an East Coast bias towards MVPs. I think you do see it. Not really so much in basketball, because in basketball, one player can define so much for a team. But if we're talking about bigger team sports like football and baseball, minus the Shohei factor, or the Mike Trout factor when you're just clearly the best player in baseball, it's a little bit, or Barry Bonds for that matter too, back when he was a Giant. But besides those three guys, you really can't point to, that West Coast player is getting all this coverage, especially in the NFL. In the NFL, I really feel like they have a problem with this, because the Rams and the Seahawks, they're not really being talked about as they're probably the two best teams in football right now. If you want to put them up there, the Eagles I know are up there, Patriots are up there, Colts, Lions, you got to give your respect to. The Broncos are not one of the best. I don't care that they're 8-2. They're not one of the best teams in football. Sorry about that, but they're just not. Some of those other teams are definitely the best teams. And the Rams and Seahawks, to me, are the best two, Rams 1, Seahawks 2, in football as of right now. And it needs to start getting talked about more. I mean, I really think we saw this bias with the accolades, especially in baseball, with Kyle Raleigh being robbed by Aaron Judge. It was close, and the voting was close as it should be, but I do think Kyle Raleigh should have got that edge. But I do think, because Judge, big market in New York, has that East Coast bias. And you see Drake May right up there with Matthew Stafford and MVP odds as well, and he should be. He's been awesome, but I do think Matthew Stafford, from an unbiased perspective, has been more valuable. Comment down below on your thoughts on this East Coast bias, because I do see a lot more East Coast teams on primetime games as well. The Rams only have a few primetime games. I mean, they have 3. They had 4 total this season. Like, that's not really a crazy amount for a team that was a play away from being in the conference championship game and probably beating the Commanders and going to the Super Bowl. So I don't really agree with that, but Adam Schefter did have this to say about this game, which we're going to get into right now. They're in a 4:05 window where most of the country will not get to see the game. And Schefter's right here. Why is this a 4:05 game? I feel like the 4:05 games, you're not really on Red Zone anymore. There's no more Octobox, so you're not really going to be watching Red Zone at that time. And if you're not a fan of these teams, this is probably when people are taking a break from watching football. Realistically, if you're going to, obviously we're not, but if you're going to, I do agree that this is a bad window for, this is the game of the week. It is. For the most implications. The winner of this game has a real shot at the 1 seed. Even if you lose, you still do. The Rams need this win because of the loss of the Eagles more so. So the Rams, this is a must-win game for both teams. And it's at the 4:05 window. And Schefter also had this to say, which we're getting into right now as well. And I think these might be right now the two best teams in football. And this is from a video clip. So he also ended the clip with, this is the one I got circled from ESPN NFL Insider Adam Schefter. He was talking on his podcast and a little social media reel about how this game is really the game of the weekend. No one's going to get to see it, but I'm going to get into why Adam Schefter thinks this is really going to change the entire NFL landscape right now. And the NFC postseason is very much in the hands of multiple NFC West division teams. Despite the current frontrunner of the conference remaining the Eagles, 3 West division teams are very much in striking distance of the playoffs: the Rams, Seahawks, and Niners. And Week 11 certainly has all the makings of a barn burner. Yes, it does. I mean, the Niners, they're still that injured. They're not doing anything in the postseason. But the Rams and Seahawks for sure look like 2 teams who could definitely represent the NFC in the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl this year. And they're on the West Coast, and I feel like no one's talking about. I watch Nick Wright a lot, and Nick Wright's tiers. He had the Seahawks and Rams in the top 2 rows. He had the Seahawks actually on top of the tiers. And he's really been the first guy to really talk about them from what I've seen. And he's always been a Matthew Stafford guy, and to bring up the Rams. And he had the Rams in the conference championship game early on in his preseason picks, but a lot of people really didn't. And now that we're finally midway through the season, we're finally starting to talk about how great these 2 teams actually are. And why is Week 11 so huge for both teams? While it's still early enough in the season for the loser to make up the difference, the victor of this game takes a huge lead in terms of NFL playoff tiebreakers. Right now, LA is at a disadvantage, having won 5 of its 7 games against AFC teams. Yeah, 5 of its 7 wins, I should say, are against AFC teams. And that is definitely an interesting point. Again, that's more so because of scheduling. Their 2 losses are to the Niners and Eagles. Both losses really shouldn't happen. You can even make the case the Rams should be 9-0 and by far the best team in football. But yeah, this is a huge, as I've been saying, this is a huge game for both teams. And yet it's at a window where no one's going to see it, and it just does not make a lot of sense whatsoever. And the Seahawks have played 2 more conference games than LA and 1 more divisional game, all wins. That translates into Seattle entering this week with the advantage, and that forces the Horns into a more desperate need for the win to remain in the hunt for the NFC West division crown. Mathematically, it's all still possible for the loser of this one to earn an NFC top seed, but in that scenario, dominoes have to fall over the right way, and destiny falls on other teams to help out, which no NFL player or coach wants to rely upon. No, they do not whatsoever. I agree with this. This is more of a must-win for LA than it is for Seattle, just based on the conference tiebreakers and the Rams having a bit more of an easier schedule, besides really the Eagles coming into this game here. I get they had to play the Niners twice, divisional game, but they've been injured both times, and now after this Seahawks game, we got the Bucs next week on Sunday Night Football. That's a primetime game, again, with another East Coast team in there. Might be why they are on primetime, but we'll have to wait and see about that one. And some of the NFL's best players will suit up to compete in SoFi Stadium this week. That's enough to lure interest from fans across the globe. In a week of NFL competition that begins to sort out the true postseason teams, the Seahawks versus the Rams is this week's granddaddy. And Adam Schefter, an accomplished NFL expert, is eager to see how it all plays out. Yes, he is. And the reason why I say this can change the landscape of the NFL is that finally fans, media, everyone is going to be talking about West Coast football. You hear football being dominated by the South, Southeast, Northeastern Seaboard. Like, people talk about the Jets and the Giants so much just because they're in New York. And I'm sorry for Jets and Giants fans. Your teams aren't good. I can't sugarcoat it. Your teams are not good, and yet we have 2 of the best teams, the 2 best teams, I should say, in the entire NFL on the West Coast, and no one is talking about it. They're talking about the Rams more so because they have the LA factor. But you don't hear about the Seahawks really at all unless they're playing a contender or someone's ranking them in tiers. But now they're finally getting the respect they deserve. And I really do believe this game is going to change that for the NFL. Not just for this year, but for the NFL going forward. I do agree with Adam Schefter there. Comment down below right now your thoughts on this overall, because I think it's a very interesting take on this game so far. But now I have to get into our second story of the day from Rams Wire about 6 key matchups that will determine this game. And also stay tuned to the end where I will be giving my score predictions. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And the first key matchup is corner Emmanuel Forbes versus wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba. Smith-Njigba lines up outside more than he does in the slot, especially with Cooper Kupp healthy again. That means Forbes and Kobe Durant will need to deal with the league's leading receiver, though mostly in zone coverage. Forbes is heating up in recent weeks, recording an interception in each of his last 2 games. He has good speed for a player with his length, but will need to match JSN's quickness in order to mirror his routes and have a chance to make plays on the ball. Yeah, this is what you're going to have to stop if you are the Rams. JSN's been unstoppable this year. I know last game he went into concussion protocol, came back in, not on the injury report at all this week, so he is going to be good to go for this one, which that's great for the Seahawks, obviously, and great for the league, and great for JSN personally, that he's not injured, but For the Rams, it makes your life a whole lot more difficult on the defensive side of the ball, trying to stop someone who has been a clear top 5 receiver in the league this year. We'll see how we can do against Emmanuel Forbes, who, as this article rightly says, has been awesome the past couple of games, and I do expect that to continue. In Forbes, Kobe Durant, I think you're going to have a matched effort. I do think Jalen McCullough's a guy you can see on him for his length. You can see Cameron Curl. Cam Kinchens maybe for speed purposes, because again, the size thing doesn't really matter as much for JSN. I think you got to mix up looks on JSN, but I do agree that Emmanuel Forbes is going to be your best chance because of his length and speed combination to really try to slow down JSN and to force Sam Darnold to throwing picks. Darnold is 0-2 in his new form against the Rams. If we go back to last year against Minnesota, again, the Minnesota O-line was not great, so the Rams are able to get to Sam Darnold. If the Rams start getting to Sam Darnold, I can really see Emmanuel Forbes, Kobe Durant, and other guys helping lock down that secondary, because that's also going to allow them to get sacks on Sam Darnold. And the next one is wide receiver Puka Nacua versus defensive back Nick Emmanuel. Emmanuel has been an impressive rookie for the Seahawks, doing a little bit of everything in the secondary. He's covered the slot more than anyone else on Seattle's defense, with Devin Witherspoon also lining up there, making this a good matchup for Nacua on the inside. Emmanuel is technically a safety, but he can cover any type of receiver. Yeah, he can. Nick Emmanuel has been really good. Again, Puka Nacua is going to be his toughest test yet so far this season, so I do potentially see him having some struggles. And with the way Puka's playing, as long as Devontae is out there, which we have an update on as well later on, so make sure to stay tuned, that this is going to be another, not want to say easy game, but a game where Puka's going to get his 6 catches, 70 yards, might get a touchdown. I don't think it's going to be possible to slow him down, because McVay is going to drop the correct plays to help with this matchup. And the next one is right guard Kevin Dotson versus D tackle Leonard Williams. Williams leads the team with 35 total pressures according to PFF, and his run defense grade is an impressive 75.3. He's a complete defensive lineman who can completely wreck an offense's game plan. He's gotten particularly hot in recent weeks too, recording 22 pressures in his last 4 games. Yeah, Leonard Williams is great. USC guy, remember watching him growing up there. Remember watching him on the Giants as well. He's been very good since he got to Seattle. Kind of underrated now that they got DeMarcus Lawrence there next to him, who's another guy you got to look out for, coming off 2 defensive touchdowns last week, although that won't most likely happen again. But yeah, Leonard Williams is a guy who's going to try to blow up the pocket quickly. Kevin Dotson's been good this year. He's been healthy too for the year, which is good. And he might be a guy that you're going to have to double on a couple of plays to really try to help open up run lanes for Blake Corum and Kyren Williams. That he's a guy you really got to look out for and potentially have to double if this Rams run game wants to keep up what it's done these last 2 games, which has really helped balance out the offense. And next we have linebacker Jared Verse versus left tackle Charles Cross. Cross has a team best 82.8 pass blocking grade this season, playing some great football at left tackle. He's only allowed 14 total pressures in 9 games, with only one of those being a sack and 3 quarterback hits allowed. Verse had a quiet game against the Niners last week, but that was mostly because of how quickly Mac Jones was getting rid of the ball. If Darnold holds on to it the way it did with the Vikings in their playoff game against the Rams last year, Verse can be in for a dominant showing. Yeah, I do agree. Charles Cross is great. He was a good draft pick by the Seahawks a few years ago. He's really turned into an anchor at that left tackle position for them. So it's going to be tough for Verse going against one of the better O-linemen in football, but I do believe he can do it. I think Verse is going to have to be a good run defender in this game too, because he didn't really do much against the run against the Niners either, which really made him have a quiet game. But I do think if he's not getting to the quarterback, he can't get on himself. He's going to have to be able to help out in the run defense, or at least be able to tackle guys on quick passes. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams and Seahawks both try to get some quick passes off in the middle of the field, and it's going to be all about open field tackling for both teams. Something Jared Verse has struggled with a bit, but has gotten better with this year, so he's going to have to be key in that area as well if Charles Cross and this O-line are doing a good job covering Jared Verse. And next up, we have linebacker Nate Landman versus Seahawks running backs. The Seahawks want to run the ball no matter the situation. They have the 2nd most rushing attempts in the NFL, but average the 4th lowest yards per carry, 3.8. So even if it's not working, they're still going to try to establish the run. I talked about this in my last video. That's not great if you're a Seahawks fan, and this Rams team is much better at defending the run. Nate Landman has 3 forced fumbles on the year, coming off of one last week too, so these RBs are going to have to hold on to the ball. So for the Rams, I do think they can really neutralize this Seattle run game, and their O-line is not great at blocking the run either. And it helps they're often leading games and have gone up big in the last 2 weeks, but they've got 2 talented backs who can make a defense pay with their differing styles. Kenneth Walker II can break off long runs, while Zach Charbonnet's hard running between the tackles can wear a defense down and put up points near the goal line. Nate Landman and Omar Speights have to be ready for a war with the Seahawks' backs because they're going to see a heavy dose of run plays as long as Seattle doesn't fall far behind on the scoreboard. Yeah, they are. And it's going to be interesting to see if it does work because the Seahawks, we've kind of seen in games where they struggle, they're not running the ball well and it's not really allowing them to pass. So I do believe for this game, the Seahawks, this Rams defense is going to be ready for that pass game. I do think the Rams may try to say, we're going to double JSN, Rashid Shaheed or New here. Let's see if he can beat us. I'm sure they're going to make sure Cooper Kupp as well doesn't have a big game in his first game back at SoFi since being released by the Rams. So this run game for the Seahawks is going to really have to open things up for them if they want to be successful. But this Rams linebacking core of Speights, Landman, Dolak, and the whole defense is going to be ready for sure. And lastly is the Rams tight ends versus another former Ram, linebacker Ernest Jones. The Rams are inevitably going to keep deploying a lot of 13 personnel packages, attempting to get the Seahawks in their base defense. From there, Sean McVay could call a run or a pass play depending on the look he gets from Seattle. With tight ends becoming a bigger part of the equation for LA, it'll be up to Jones and the Seahawks' other middle-of-the-field defenders to cover Tyler Higbee, Colby Parkinson, Davis Allen, and Eman Wari could be tasked with covering Terrence Ferguson in the slot some too. But Jones has never been a top-tier coverage linebacker, particularly potentially giving the Rams some mismatches with their tight ends. Yeah, I do agree with that. Ernest Jones is a great run defender. He's pretty good in the pass rush as well, but open field coverage is where he does struggle, so there could be some mismatches here. I do see the Rams using 13 personnel a lot as well. Although this defense has been elite, Mike McDonald, one of the best young head coaches and defensive minds in the NFL. So this defense is going to come ready. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams can't use 13 personnel as much as they have, because the Seahawks will be able to adjust. But if they can, then this Rams team is going to win this game. And I think all four tight ends, just like they did last week, are going to play a part in this as well. And now I have some quick injury updates to get into. For the Rams, Devontae Adams with his oblique and Kobe Turner with his back injury are questionable, but both expected to play. Kobe Turner got in some practice late this week. And the Seahawks are without starting center Jalen Sundell. Someone said that in the comments last video, so thank you for telling me that as well, with a knee injury. And Torrey Horton, who's had some big games with a groin injury, wide receiver for the Seahawks. There now for my score prediction. But before I do that, leave in the comments down below. What is your biggest matchup that will determine this game? For me, it is how the Rams will cover JSN. I know it's obvious, but that's really how you can slow down the Seahawks passing game after you can slow down a run, which they've kind of slowed on their own. But for JSN, you got to be able to know where he is on the field at all times, or else he will rip a big gain on you, because he doesn't even have a lot of receptions. It's the deep shots that are getting the defenses, and the Rams have done a good job this year not giving up the deep ball. Let's see if they can keep that up. In my score prediction, I have the Rams winning 24-20. I know I had 24-21 last week against the Niners, but I think this is going to be a pretty mid-scoring game. I think both teams are going to have some field goal attempts in there as well. We'll see how Harrison Mevis looks in this game as well, potentially kicking a field goal. But I do think 24-20 is my final score pick. Comment down below your final score pick as well. And that's all for this episode of Rams Digest. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 5K, 5,000 subscribers. So if you want to be a part of the journey, make sure to hit that sub button and click that notification bell. Click all so you get notified and never miss whenever I post our daily new Rams Digest video content pieces, so you don't miss a beat this NFL season. Leave a like on this video for Week 9 being underway. Leave a like on this video as well for Josh and I going back on stream this Sunday around 12:55 p.m. Pacific time for this ever-important game, Rams-Seahawks, key divisional and playoff predicting matchup and determining matchup. And leave in the comments down below your thoughts on Adam Schefter's take about this game changing the way NFL fans and media view West Coast teams. And it should have already been changed, but let me know down below in the comments. Leave another comment as well, your key matchup of the game. Mine is the Rams covering JSN. And leave in the comments down below your score prediction. Mine is 24-20. I've been your host, Joshua Finehirsh, as always. Thank you very much for watching another episode of Rams Digest. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you soon for another one. Have a great rest of your day, and stay safe from the rain tonight and tomorrow if you're in the LA area.